She's the one who shot her.
Restraining order, but she shot her.
The gun in the car. The gun in the car.
Oh my fucking God!
Hey, the baby in the car. How you feel? She didn't drop her. Get up. You scared as hell, all right? Scared as hell. You scared as hell. That is not self-defense. He was running someone in the car, bro. You're going to the car, bro. What are you talking about? You had her in a headlock. And then you shot her, Brody. I was there. I'll write a statement, Brody. Don't worry about it.
I'm arrested. There's a fucking gun on the street. I'm licensed to carry.
It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter, bitch.
You shot somebody, nigga. What the fuck wrong with you?
Calm down. Calm the fuck down.
He out his mother. He out
his. She put the gun in the car. The gun, she shot her? Let's go right here. She shot her. She shot her. She put the gun in the car. She put the gun in the car. The gun is in the car. Arrest her.
On the morning of September 8th, 2025, a mother slipped a loving note into her little boy's lunchbox before dropping him off at school. It was a simple gesture, the kind of tender moment that defines motherhood, a reminder that he was loved, that she would be there when he got home. Minutes later, Romeca Meeks' Blackman lay dying on a Chicago street. The 31-year-old was shot and killed on the 2200 block of South State Street in the city's South Loop after an altercation that morning. She was rushed to Stroger Hospital, but never made it home to her son. Her final act was one of love. What followed was a story of grief, outrage, and unanswered questions. Who was Romeca? What happened that morning? And why does her family still cry out for justice? September 8th, 2025 began like countless other mornings for Romeca Meeks Blackman. She woke up, got her young son ready for school, and took the time to write him a note, a small piece of paper that would become a symbol of everything stolen from this family. That note, tucked carefully into his lunchbox, was filled with the kind of encouragement only a mother can give. It said she loved him. It reminded him to have a good day. It promised she'd be there when he got home. After dropping her son off at school, Romeca headed to the 2200 block of South State Street in Chicago's South Loop neighborhood. Around 9:05 a.m., a dispute broke out on State Street. Witnesses reported raised voices, a confrontation that intensified rapidly. What began as a dispute transformed into violence in seconds. Gunfire shattered the morning calm. Romeca was shot. Bystanders rushed for cover as the sound of gunshots echoed through the South Loop streets. Some witnesses reported seeing the immediate aftermath.
The car. The gun, she shot her? Let's go right here. She shot her. She shot her. She put the gun in the car.
On the ground, blood pooling beneath her, desperate attempts to help before paramedics arrived. Chicago police responded quickly to multiple 911 calls reporting the shooting. Officers arrived to find Romeca suffering from gunshot wounds. Paramedics worked urgently to stabilize her as she was placed into an ambulance and rushed towards Stroger Hospital, one of Chicago's major trauma centers. Despite the quick response and the efforts of medical personnel, Romeca's injuries were too severe. She was pronounced dead at the hospital, leaving behind a little boy who would come home from school that day to discover his mother's promise had been broken, not by choice, but by violence. Police took a suspect into custody at the scene shortly after the shooting. According to early reports, an individual was taken into custody, giving investigators and the family hope that justice might come quickly. The suspect was transported to a police facility for questioning as detectives began putting together what had happened on State Street that morning. Eyewitnesses provided statements. The crime scene was photographed and processed. Physical evidence was collected. For a brief moment, it seemed like the case might move forward with the clarity that grieving families desperately need. But then something happened that would spark anger and confusion. The suspect, who had been taken into custody, was released. No charges were filed. Prosecutors stated insufficient evidence or an ongoing investigation. The specific reasoning remained unclear to the public and, more painfully, to Romeca's family. Before her name appeared in police reports and news headlines, before her death became another Chicago homicide statistic, Romeca Meeks Blackman was a woman building a life defined by love, ambition, and determination. At 31 years old, she was navigating the complexities of single motherhood while pursuing dreams that would secure a better future for herself and her son. Romeca was, above all else, a loving mother. Those who knew her described her relationship with her son as the center of her universe. Every decision she made considered his well-being, his future, his happiness. The note she placed in his lunchbox that final morning wasn't unusual. It was characteristic of a woman who understood that small gestures of love create the foundation of a child's security. She showed up for him daily, consistently, with the kind of maternal dedication that doesn't make headlines until heartbreak arrives. Family members described Romeca as kind and full of life, someone whose presence brightened rooms and whose absence would leave a permanent emptiness. Her mother, Tina McMiller, would later stand at a memorial gathering with tears streaming down her face, asking how this could have happened.
A grieving mother is speaking out after her daughter was shot to death in Chicago's South Loop.
Demanding justice for her daughter, struggling to comprehend a world where her child was gone. The grief in a mother's eyes when she buries her daughter is a particular kind of sorrow, made worse when the death feels preventable, when questions outnumber answers. Romeca was also pursuing her education and career goals. Reports indicated she was working toward becoming a nurse, a profession that would have allowed her to care for others professionally, just as she cared for her son personally. Nursing requires compassion, strength, and dedication, qualities those who knew Romeca said she possessed in full measure. She was building toward a future where financial stability and professional fulfillment would provide security for her family. That future was stolen in seconds. The community's response to Romeca's death revealed how deeply she was loved. Friends posted tributes on social media, sharing photos and memories that painted a picture of a woman who was more than the circumstances of her death. A GoFundMe campaign was quickly established by her mother to help with funeral expenses and provide support for Romeca's young son. The financial burden of sudden death is overwhelming. Funeral costs, memorial services, and the long-term needs of a child who has lost his primary protector. The fundraiser became a gathering place for collective grief, allowing people to contribute in a real and meaningful way while feeling helpless to change what had happened. A memorial gathering was held in West Englewood, where community members gathered with candles, flowers, and broken hearts. They shared stories about Romeca, prayed for her son, and demanded justice for her death. The hours and days following Romeca Meeks Blackman's murder were marked by confusion, frustration, and growing anger from her family and community. What should have been a straightforward path to justice instead became a complicated mess of contradictory information, legal complications, and painful, unanswered questions. As mentioned, police apprehended a suspect shortly after the shooting on September 8th. This initial arrest gave Romeca's family hope that accountability would come quickly. The suspect was taken into custody, questioned by detectives, and held while investigators worked to build a case. For families of homicide victims, these first hours are critical. Evidence is fresh, witnesses' memories are clear, and the shock of the crime can motivate cooperation that might fade as time passes.
Where 31-year-old Romeca Meeks Blackman was shot and killed during a school drop-off on Monday. And she says her daughter was loving, supportive, and an amazing mother.
But then the suspect was released. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office, which makes charging decisions in Chicago homicide cases, apparently determined that the evidence was insufficient to file charges at that time. The specific reasoning wasn't made publicly clear, leaving Romeca's family and the community to wonder about what had gone wrong. Was it a lack of physical evidence, conflicting witness statements, legal technicalities about self-defense, or the circumstances of the confrontation? The official silence only deepened the wound. Romeca's mother, Tina McMiller, was heartbroken and deeply frustrated. She had just lost her daughter, and now the person believed to be responsible was walking free. At the vigil and in statements to local media outlets, including Fox, 32 Chicago, family members expressed disbelief and anger at the justice system. How could someone be detained at the scene of a shooting and then released without charges? Some witnesses reportedly described the confrontation one way, while others provided different details about the sequence of events. These conflicting narratives complicated the investigation and likely contributed to state attorneys' hesitation to file charges. In cases where self-defense might be claimed, but for Romeca's family, active investigation offered little reassurance when no one had been charged and no timeline for justice was provided. The legal complexities highlight broader issues within Chicago's criminal justice system. Prosecutors face significant pressure to file charges only when they believe they can secure convictions. A case that goes to trial and results in not guilty verdict means justice is permanently denied. For Romeca's family, watching the person apprehended at the scene go free while their loved one lay in the morgue felt like a betrayal. Several critical questions remained unanswered. What exactly happened during the dispute that morning? Who initiated the confrontation? Were there weapons visible before the shooting? Did Romeca pose a threat that could justify the use of deadly force? Were there multiple witnesses who saw everything? Or was the incident witnessed only partially by people who saw different parts of the situation? These details, which might be known to investigators, hadn't been shared publicly, leaving the community to fill the gap with assumptions and frustration. Reporters covering the case urged caution about naming individuals or making conclusive statements about guilt before charges were filed. The legal principle of innocent until proven guilty applies even in cases where emotions run high and families cry out for justice.
She loved me. She loved her siblings.
Yet this journalistic and legal caution felt academic to a family burying a mother who would never see her son grow up. As of the reporting period, the status remained unchanged. Investigation active, no charges filed, family demanding answers, and a little boy growing up without his mother. Blackman's death sent shockwaves through Chicago's communities, particularly resonating in neighborhoods that have watched too many lives cut short by gun violence. The response was immediate, emotional, and rooted in both personal grief and collective exhaustion, with a crisis that seems to have no end. It was about every mother, every daughter, every person stolen by violence in Chicago's streets. It was a statement that these lives matter, that the community refuses to become hardened to tragedy, that each death deserves recognition and justice. Religious leaders spoke about the need for both immediate action and long-term change. They called on law enforcement to solve Romeca's case and on the broader society to address the root causes that make such violence possible. They understand that each name on their memorial lists represents a family destroyed and a community incrementally worn down by loss. The challenge facing Chicago is immense. Solving Romeca's case might bring her family some measure of justice, but it won't prevent the next shooting, the next mother killed, the next child left without a parent. Comprehensive change requires political will, financial investment, community engagement, and time. Resources often in short supply when immediate crises demand attention. The endgame. Romeca Meeks. Blackman was 31 years old when she placed that note in her son's lunchbox and kissed him goodbye. She should have had decades ahead, watching her son graduate, celebrating his achievements, maybe becoming a grandmother someday. Instead, her life ended on a Chicago street on a September morning, and her final act of love became her last. Her family still waits for justice, her son still waits for answers, and her community still demands accountability. Support her son through the verified GoFundMe organized by Tina McMiller. And let Romeca's death remind us that behind every statistic is a person who mattered, who was loved, and who deserved better. If you have any information about the shooting of Romeca Meeks Blackman on September 8, 2025, contact Chicago Police Homicide Unit 31274782271 or Chicago Crime Stoppers. Support her son by donating to the verified GoFundMe organized by Tina McMiller. Subscribe for updates on this case and other stories demanding justice. Share this video to keep Romeca's story alive and push for justice and accountability.